Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, Nonprofit and Library Technology Trends for 2019. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items, so all callers will be muted. If you have questions, feel free to use the chat box that you see on the left-hand side of your screen. If you have to drop off early or if you want to watch the webinar again, we will be hosting the webinar on our website at TechSoup.org/community/events-webinars. We'll also be sending an email with the presentation, the recording, and any relevant links that we talk about today. And then also if you're on social media, feel free to tweet at us at TechSoup using hashtag #TSWebinars. But like I said earlier, we will be monitoring the Q&A box that you see on the left-hand side of your screen. So just a little bit about TechSoup. We are located in 236 countries and territories, and we serve over 1 million nonprofits. We partner with several technology companies like Adobe, Intuit, Microsoft, Symantec, and several more that you see here to make our mission possible, providing either donated or discounted technologies to nonprofits around the world. And outside of just hardware and software offerings, we also offer things like tech consulting, apps for change, free information and resources, training, and community events, and several other things. So if you would like to know more, you can visit our website at TechSoup.org to see what we offer. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce today's speaker. So real quick, on the back end we have Zareen Kazi, who will be assisting with chat, and then also myself. My name is Seema Tucker. I'm the Senior Manager of Content here at TechSoup. And then today's presenter is Jim Lynch, and he is the Senior Writer at TechSoup. So he has been with TechSoup for several years, and over his long career at TechSoup, Jim has seen all the fads and also the solid aspects of tech for good. He's also written on nonprofit tech trends over the last 10 years. He's been interviewed extensively by NP Tech and Related Issues, by the Wall Street Journal, NPR, PC World Magazine, and many other news outlets. So before I actually hand it over to Jim, I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me okay. So if you guys don't mind typing in the chat box where you're calling in from and what organization you work for, and I'll read out a few of them just to make sure you guys can hear me. All right. We have McFarland, Wisconsin, New York, let's see, Texas, Greenfield, Tennessee. Okay, cool. So it looks like you guys can hear me okay. Perfect. So I am going to go ahead and now pass it off to today's presenter, Jim.
Hi, everybody. Let's see what we have here. So, nonprofit technology and library trends for 2019. A lot to cover. So before we get going, I'd love to know who you are in terms of what kind of organization you're in. So if you could take just a moment to tell us that. Just click whichever one applies to you. I can see who you are and what I should say. All right, looks like we've got, oh lovely, we've got a lovely number of libraries in the audience. So we've got a good solid nonprofit and library audience, so I'll then speak to that. So I have in mind to say a bit about all of these different things if we can get through it all. Probably my favorite part of this is what not to worry about in 2019. So that will be a fun conversation. I encourage everybody to put your questions in the chat, and we'll integrate them during the presentation. So I think I favor having a dialogue with everybody rather than having a Q&A at the end. So I'm hopefully not going to just drone all the way through my presentation, but rather let's have a conversation. So ask the questions, and we'll try to answer them, as they come up. So I've been, for the last 10 years or so, I've been doing annual predictions for the coming year, and it's interesting. The way I do that is essentially I interview really smart people in the field of libraries or nonprofit, and actually church technology and foundation technology as well. And then I write those things up, and they go out in early January every year. It's interesting that most people see a little tiny part of the elephant that I interview, their particular area of expertise, and my interest is to just look at the whole thing as best I can. So that's what we're going to attempt here today. So may as well jump in here. Fundraising, both libraries and nonprofits do that like crazy. The big, huge news is that there has been a real serious drop-off of people who are under the age of 35 from Facebook. And so Facebook has kind of been up to now like the one-size-fits-all medium that you can reach everybody, but that's changing in 2019. It's happened real fast. So Facebook's trouble with privacy and being in the news all the time has caused some real damage to them. So it's the good news is that an older audience, people over 35, are still on Facebook. They haven't dropped off at all. They're there. And of course Facebook has 2 billion members. So it's still, a monster vehicle for talking to people and reaching people who are your supporters. They've raised more than $1 billion up to date now to charities and libraries worldwide. So the question is, how do you reach the millennials, people 35 and younger? So actually, there's some ironic news in this. I have on good authority from Heather Mansfield from Nonprofit Tech for Good that it's likely that Facebook will expand this coming year its fundraising tools, which are great, by the way, to nonprofits and libraries on Instagram. And Facebook owns Instagram. Millennials are on Instagram like crazy. They prefer it. And so there you go. So that's very fun. Millennials also favor crowdfunding. And that was something that appeared in the Giving Tuesday stats that just came in late November this past year. So crowdfunding is a way to get to those people. Another really important kind of new thing, it's not a new thing, it's something called peer-to-peer fundraising, but it's not well adopted yet by either nonprofits or libraries as far as I can tell. And peer-to-peer fundraising is something called, it's also called social fundraising and friend-to-friend fundraising. So Friends of the Library groups are perfect for this. Fantastic. And essentially it's just setting up your supporters with kind of the tools they need so that they can actually go out and invite their friends to contribute to their favorite cause. Really simple. There are kind of tools out there. There are what they call peer-to-peer fundraising platforms. We have a couple of them on a donation basis on TechSoup. One is called Donor Perfect. One is called Bloomerang. There's the other big names in that. One is called CauseVox, CrowdRise, places like that. You can actually, have a look. There's lists of these things out there. There's actually several of them. And actually, you don't need a platform. We have a great article on TechSoup on setting up a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign without a platform, just using what you've got, your donor list, your email, and your website to be able to do that. So we have a great how-to thing on that on TechSoup. Another huge thing that's happening this year is the new tax law in fundraising. I don't know how many of you have heard about that or know much about that, but a little bit technical here, so sorry about that. But a nonprofit called the Tax Policy Center estimates that there'll be a huge reduction of the people who will be itemizing their taxes in 2019. So there'll be no place for them to take a charitable deduction on their taxes. This thing went into effect last year, late last year, early in 2018. But people don't know about it yet, and they'll find out about it in April, we expect. And so that's going to be a game changer. In addition to that, there is another wrinkle to it in which the law will require nonprofits to pay a 21% tax on the cost of employee transportation benefits. And the good people at Independent Sector that are probably the best source on all of this stuff about the new tax law say that it's going to cause small offices, libraries, or nonprofits on average about $12,000 per year. That's another part of this tax law that's going to hit and cost charities and libraries and churches and foundations. So that's a lot. That's a lot to digest here. But the new tax law is something to keep an eye on. And of course, there are fundraising techniques that you can do, and peer-to-peer is actually one of the great ones to sort of deal with this, because it's personal. Peer-to-peer fundraising is it's a very personal way of fundraising, and if somebody asks their friend to donate to the cause they like, they won't care so much about the tax donation, we think. So that's a lot. But fundraising is, a major thing. So there it is.
We got a couple questions while you were talking. So I'll just go ahead and ask them to you. How big of a cut does Facebook take if you run fundraising on their platform?
It's minimal. It's tiny. I don't even know if they take a cut. Actually, the cut is taken by your processing, your payment processing service that you set up.
Gotcha.
And it's usually in the range of 2%, 2.5%, something like that.
Okay. And then in terms of the peer-to-peer fundraising, is that more appealing to a certain age group?
No, that's universal. Friend to friend. So no.
Okay, perfect. All right, I think we're pretty straightforward. Okay, I think we're good.
All right, love this image on communications. So the new information on what's going on with communications is, the best source of that is a woman by the name of Kitty LaRue Miller. She runs something called nonprofitmarketingguide.com. And she publishes every year the new trends in this part of the world of charities and libraries. So what does she say? I mean, these things on communications, things don't change a lot every year. Charities, especially, and to some extent libraries, rely on 4 marketing strategies these days: permission-based marketing, content marketing, and I can explain what those are. Especially content marketing is kind of a new idea for lots of charities and libraries, and experience marketing and relationship marketing. So content marketing, I think, is probably the new frontier for charities and libraries to a large extent. That's sort of providing a mix of both, advertising and just purely informational content. And so I love the way we do it on TechSoup for Libraries on our Twitter feed. The mix is about, 75% just purely interesting, cool stuff about library technology, and 25% is stuff that TechSoup offers libraries. And so that's a great example of content marketing, and that's sort of a new area. Businesses have been doing that for the last, 5 or 6 years like crazy. So you can look up that to figure out what it is. Content marketing is also good for something called lead generation. So you provide some tantalizing, interesting content, but then when people click on the link, they're asked to provide their email address so that you can then, go back to them and find out if they're a good candidate to be involved in your organization or your library. 65% of nonprofits that use it say it's the most effective thing they've got going these days. On kind of the bleeding edge of this, live streaming video is kind of the new thing that nonprofits are trying out. You can do that on Facebook. And still, almost half of charities, and probably more than half of charities, but about half of charities have no budget whatsoever for their communications work. So sorry, but that's the current state of it. And then on social media, there's a place called Buffer, B-U-F-F-E-R. They do a state of social media for 2019. And kind of the new, and this is not charity or library centric. It's everybody, especially businesses and especially small businesses. But the new things that are happening are story or story ads on Facebook and Instagram. So if you're not on Instagram, that's actually a pretty important platform now and increasing in importance, and especially for young users. A new frontier are messaging apps, and the big dog is WhatsApp, which I think is another Facebook-owned thing, and then, of course, Facebook Messenger, and something we use quite a bit at TechSoup called Slack, and then WeChat. You can actually reach out to people because people respond to their phones much more readily than they respond to a computer or even a tablet device. Live video is a big deal on social as well. And that's probably interesting. They also indicate that everybody's having trouble measuring the effectiveness of their social media outreach. So people quite don't know how to do that yet, how to get the numbers in on that to find out what works and what doesn't work. So if you don't know that or you're not doing that very well, you have good company. That's a trend. That's most people don't quite yet. We have great content on that, by the way, on TechSoup. Security and privacy, holy smokes.
We have one question that came in regarding content marketing. So Vince is wanting to know, can you explain the difference between content marketing, experience marketing, and relationship marketing, and permission-based marketing? So
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on that. That's why I kind of blithely skipped over it, because that is like a webinar in itself.
Yeah.
We could probably do the whole thing.
We are actually doing one for content marketing in the next couple months, so we'll send out an update about that.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can cover all those things, because that's I think the other big dog in that is event and experience-based marketing, and that's essentially where you get people involved in your organization by giving them a show, and it's usually a live event, or it could be an online event that gets people pretty interested in what you're doing. So nothing hugely new on event and experience marketing, but I think it's kind of something of a new frontier. And it's for lead generation, getting new people involved rather than existing people. And that's a huge part of communications, is getting the difference between people who already are involved with you and new people who aren't yet involved with you. That's kind of the big deal in all of this communication stuff.
I think there's the offline marketing, and then online too. So content marketing it falls under the online category.
All right, let me move on to security and privacy. So this is something that's not new. It happens every year. It's always the top major thing that all of the places, the tech publications like ZDNet and all the rest of those cover for each year. Cyber attacks will be increasing this year. They have increased over the last several years. There'll be more of them. The big things to watch out for, the things that are going to get after you, are called ransomware. Ransomware is a thing where a message will appear on a computer or a mobile device saying, you have to send us money or else we're shutting you down. So send the money here. And quite often the money they're asking for is something like Bitcoin, a cyber, one of those kind of newfangled, I forget, cryptocurrencies is what they'll call those things. The other one is email phishing, and that's where somebody basically sends you, a threatening, not threatening, but they send you an email and ask you to click on something you do, and then they're in. They're in, or they're basically have inserted some kind of virus or worm or some other terrible thing into your computer system in doing that. So those are the major threats. Ransomware is actually really increasing quite a bit, and that's a real threat to small offices. The weakest security link, does anybody know what that is? That's your employees and your volunteers. People who don't know about good passwords, long and strong passwords, people who are susceptible to somebody calling them on the phone and doing social engineering, they call it, posing as a tech support person, getting their password and security credentials and getting into your network and then taking whatever's in there of value. That is the weakest link. And so one thing that's overlooked by many, many organizations is training the staff on how to spot a phishing email, how to avoid getting sucked into one of these social engineering attacks or any other kind of attack. Let's see. I've got a link here for just one of the many sort of online resources that are available to you. For nonprofits especially, this is not so much for libraries, but accidental techies are people who, quite often, they're some of the youngest people on the staff who are recently in college, pretty computer and mobile literate. They can troubleshoot things pretty quickly. They're computer savvy. It's not their job to do all this IT stuff, but they do because there's nobody else, right? So that's still very common in the nonprofit sphere. And one thing that I want to stress strongly is that somebody in that position, an accidental techie, is in no position to single-handedly try to deal with your security situation, your IT security situation. So if you have any kind of IT budget at all, get them some professional help to do an audit to find out what your vulnerabilities are and to get the right software in place, and then to set up or recommend a staff training so that your weakest links will not be caught, and so on and so forth. So that's something that we strongly recommend for accidental techies. TechSoup, we have a wonderful array of donated and discounted things on there. Our top donation for the last 3 years running has been Symantec's Norton Small Business and also Endpoint Security. So that's the Symantec security products are great. We have something called Bitdefender, which does antivirus and internet security. So they do firewall, which is another important thing for your website. And then another company called Komodo and another company called Mailshale. And they both do anti-spam. So we have great things on TechSoup, product donations on TechSoup that you should probably check out if you need such a thing. So any questions, Ms. Seema?
Yes, I think we have a couple. So there's a question about, I've been locked out from a shutdown threat. Is there any obvious way to avoid lockouts? Pretty specific.
Oof. Microsoft is probably Microsoft still, Windows is still 92%, 91% of all operating systems out there for computers, for IT systems. And I recommend their safeguards. And I don't have links for all the Microsoft safeguards, but that's the first place I'd start, is to look at their protections and their strategies for either preventing a lockout or for dealing with one that happens to you. Now, sorry about that. I don't have the direct links for the Microsoft resources on that, but they're considerable and they're excellent. So that's probably the first place I'd start.
Perfect. Okay, I think we're good.
Identity management. What is that? Something that's been around for a while in the corporate world, sort of the enterprise world. This is a technology that is worth looking at if your library or your nonprofit has people coming and going. You've got volunteers coming and going. They're using your IT system, or you have lots of employees or any other kind of people that are going on and off your IT system. And these are tools that basically onboard and offboard people, and also limit the amount of stuff on your IT system that they can get to. So if you don't want to give the entire privileges to your network and all your documents and all your financial stuff to a volunteer, that's quite possible using a tool like Okta, OKTA. That's a new donor partner at TechSoup, and probably the industry leader in this. And they offer 25 free licenses, so you can check it out. You can check out this kind of identity management newfangled thing. And I recommend it. That's a new frontier for nonprofits and libraries, and it's easy to play with, and it's quite good. This is a really useful thing. So, any questions on that newfangled thing?
I think we're good.
All right. Cloud computing. You've heard about it ad nauseum. So what's new? What on earth can be new about that? It's been going apace since about the time of the Great Recession. Cloud computing is where software companies, all of them, Microsoft on down, are essentially moving to a rental model. You pay by the month per user rather than just getting your software and owning it outright. And they're all moving to that because that's much better for the software companies to do it that way. And the big deal on that is that the on-premises software that we have on TechSoup on a donation basis has been really, really dwindling. All of our donor partners are pulling their on-premises software, and we had in 2018, it went down to half of what it was the previous year. And so now we're seeing that, okay, pretty much time to start biting a bullet and getting into cloud computing. And of course, the big deals on that are, your Office apps, Microsoft Office, for instance, email, your databases, donor database and client database, and then document storage and recovery, which is probably the most important thing that if you're not already using a cloud service for that, you probably should. So Microsoft Office 365 is Microsoft's offer to libraries and for nonprofits, and it's free. And Google for Nonprofits has G Suite Basic, also for free, but just for nonprofits, not for libraries. You can find a link on TechSoup to get the free version of Office 365. For libraries, you go through something called the Microsoft Academic Channel. and I'm hoping that maybe Seema can put a link on that in the chat so you can see where that is.
I just put it there. Yep.
Okay, good. So that's the academic channel. So that's terrific. That's the good news. It's free, and you can get more robust versions of it for more money. I mean, the top of the line version for Office 365 is $15 per user per month, and you don't have to have everybody on the same version. You can have almost everybody on the basic free version, but somebody who's a power user, two people having a more robust version. So it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. They're both great. There's, I've been seeing still Office 365 versus G Suite articles like on ZDNet. They're both good. I mean, they're both great. They both work very well. And the thing about G Suite for libraries, it's under their government channel, so it will cost more. But if your your city government or your county government already has something going with Google, then you can probably get in on that. The bad part of that is, the difficult part of that is that migrating to these things, they're complex software packages, requires some professional help, especially with migrations, and especially with email migrations, which gets really complicated. And so if you can get some help with that from maybe a place like techimpact.org, that's well worth investing in. Also, cloud services require a different kind of IT budgeting. It's not get your almost free kind of product donation to TechSoup and done. You really have to budget for this. It's a monthly kind of budget, and it's probably going to be more expensive. The killer app on this, and this has to do with security as well as cloud computing, is backup and restore services. And the big names in this area are Acronis, Carbonite, Mozy, LiveDrive, and one I like is iDrive. So actually, lots of small offices can actually get by with something called iDrive Personal, which is $50 for 2 terabytes of backup and restore service for unlimited computers. I mean, that's $50 a year for, safeguarding against, if you have a cyber attack and everything gets ruined, you can actually get it all restored within a day using one of these services. So it's an incredibly useful insurance policy for you. So that's my personal recommendation. My sense is that small offices and libraries and nonprofits are not using that quite yet. That's a new thing. Corporations, of course, are all over that and are using it like crazy. So any questions on accelerating cloud computing?
Not yet. I think we're good.
All right. Branding. I've got to step it up here. Too much to say. So branding is an area that people kind of pay attention to. That's branding on your website, branding in your emails, branding in your social media. And actually, let's see, I'm hoping that you can actually send a link to the Social Media Today infographic on all the different things. These are kind of technical things, and they have names like pops of vivid color, futuristic color palettes, abstract patterns, complex gradients and duotones, stuff like that. But I think one of the most interesting things about this is that the new fad, which I like, the fad that I really like, are the fun hand-drawn illustrations and even animations. The best example of that is something called the storyofstuff.org. So if you take a look at their little videos, just incredibly compelling, very interesting, suck everybody into them. Anybody who has, glances at them will look at them, look at the whole damn thing, and they're long. So I like that. I like that trend best of all of these things. I won't spend a whole lot of time. This is definitely not my area. I'm not a graphic designer no, not at all, nothing. So I'm just channeling social media today as best I can. But there's new stuff in that to pay attention to, and especially on social media, I would say, because if you're behind the times, people will notice it and like you less for it. So that's really all I have to say about that. Assistive technology, that's a thing involving IT for people who have any kind of disability. And so hearing and sight are probably the main ones in disability. And by the way, that is kind of the frontier on diversity for everybody. That's across the board, businesses, small offices, nonprofits, libraries, I would say. Libraries actually are ahead of the curve, from what I can tell, of everybody. Libraries are paying attention to this quite a bit because their patron bases are, I mean, a fifth or 25%, 20 to 25% of everybody in the country has some kind of disability. So libraries really have to deal with this like crazy, with their big, huge numbers of people coming in and needing help. This is not terribly new, but it's not something that people know about quite, is that all the major operating systems for both computers and all mobile devices have magnificent accessibility features in them. Things like screen readers and dictation features, enlargement things where if you can't see the screen very well, it will enlarge the screen for you. Just amazing, cool stuff that used to be expensive, a few years ago, and required specialized programs, but now are built in to Windows 7, 8, and 10. It's all on there. Great features on iPad, Mac computers, all in there, iPhones, Android phones, all of it. And then SEMA just called my attention to this wonderful, wonderful app called Be My Eyes. And it's a free thing, and it's an app that connects blind and low vision people with sighted volunteers for help with when they're on a visual live video call. And so there's not a whole lot of mobile apps, actually, I have to say, that I found on this. Somebody can correct me on this, but I'm just not finding a lot of them. But this one is a really, really clever one that I like. All right, my favorite now. What do we have? Bleeding Edge. Did we have another video? Oh, we have just one Bleeding Edge? Okay, that's fine. So let me wrap it up here on all of this stuff. There's one actual Bleeding Edge thing that I think is interesting. It's something called Go Donate Voice, and I came across it in the UK. They're actually starting to use it. Nonprofits are, actually. I haven't seen any library users. And that's a thing where charity supporters can talk to their, as they say on NPR, their smart speaker, say, Alexa, open NSPC, which is the name of a charity, and donate $10 to them. So there's this clever studio called WPN Chameleon, who has built an app that that actually will do this. It's an Alexa app, and then the money is donated from a user's Amazon account and sent to the charity via Amazon Pay. It's all Amazon all the time, and so it is a bleeding edge thing, but it's something I think that may have some interest for libraries to experiment and charities for experiment as well. So this is out of the UK. I don't know a whole lot about it. I've only heard about it. I certainly haven't seen it. But what shouldn't you not worry about? Let's start with blockchain. You've heard a bunch about it. It's a distributed sort of database thing that is the back end of Bitcoin. It's a ledger, they call it. I have not seen any nonprofit aside from TechSoup actually use that thing. I just haven't seen anybody use it. I haven't seen any libraries using it yet. It's fantastically clever. It's a weird thing where nobody owns it and nobody manages it. It's kind of a technology that runs itself and allows everybody to see the transaction, any kind of transaction that's taken place, to make sure that it's kosher. I'm sure that people will find, good uses for that in the future. I'm just not seeing it yet. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, unless, as I mentioned, you get a ransomware attack, because they mostly want Bitcoin to unlock your IT system. So you may need Bitcoin. I don't know. I've actually never bought Bitcoin, but it's a pretty interesting story. It's a thing. It's a bubble. It actually peaked in 2017, and each Bitcoin was worth, I don't know, astronomical amount of money. And then it burst, and then it came down and down and down. There are hundreds, literally hundreds of these cryptocurrencies out there, and it's just too it is too bleeding edge to really use, I think. Artificial intelligence, not much that I've seen. The one thing I've seen nonprofits do, maybe libraries can do this as well, in fact, certainly libraries can do this, is create a Facebook Messenger bot. That's a conversational thing that can actually hold a conversation, usually a written conversation with somebody. And it seems like there's a human being on the other side of that conversation, but it's actually a bot. So it's kind of a useful thing for directing people to the right services that you're offering. They call up and they can talk to this bot, and it will direct them to where they want to go. Augmented reality and virtual reality. Actually, libraries are using this quite a bit. They're actually hosting, lots of them, like 90%, are hosting media labs where people can try out VR headsets that are connected to a VR-enabled computer. And so that's actually a real library thing, a real deal. And I think it's PC World has great reviews of the good ones that are coming out right away. I don't think nonprofits have found much of a use for either of these things yet. Internet of Things, the darling of all tech press everywhere. That's a thing where, I don't know, it's like your refrigerator will tell you when you need milk. I don't know. It's the world of industrial sensors that are connected to the internet and interact with human beings. It's kind of a way of describing it. Smart thermostats like Nest is an example of IoT. The knock on Internet of Things is that the security on these things is not there. These things have horrendously bad security features. That means they can be hacked like crazy. I don't see much of a use for charities. I think that things like Alexa are regarded as Internet of Things, so maybe there'll be something coming in and around that. Drones, I don't think anybody's delivering medicines to rural Africa much, maybe a little bit, or using them for like surveillance drones to look at terrain or to take lots of pictures and send them to whoever's operating the drone. That there may be a use in environmental surveys. I'm not seeing it yet. I expected to see some of that in the nonprofit world, but that's just not taking off. The use in libraries is that people are interested in drones, and they can get a drone for very cheap, on Amazon. They can buy one and try it out and play with it and stuff. But there's a huge difference between industrial drones and little personal toy type drones. And so I'm not seeing a whole bunch of what's going on there in 2019 at least. Self-driving cars, hear them all about them. I don't see it. I don't see that anybody is doing anything with them in nonprofits or libraries. You can correct me. And then quantum computing. I don't even know what that is really. It's a newfangled type of computer architecture that governments and spy agencies and military intelligence uses to crack codes and things. It is a real thing. In my reading on it, I have found, though, that conventional or classic computer architecture still works, as good or better than that stuff, and especially and even on supercomputers like the IBM Watson. So that is so bleeding edge, but it's something that the tech press loves to talk about from time to time. So you may hear about it, but I don't think there's even close to a use in nonprofits or libraries. But believe me, correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody have any quibbles about any of this?
No quibbles yet.
Okay.
I think everyone's absorbing it all. So yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. That was a very dense kind of presentation. I apologize for how much stuff I packed in there, but computer geek.
Is there in terms of like beacon technology and how libraries are using those and how that's connected to IoT? Like, have you seen?
I don't know if that's. Beacon? I don't know if you guys know about Hotspot Technology. I don't think that's regarded as IoT. Hotspot Technology is something that's taken off in libraries and educational nonprofits like crazy in the last year, and it's definitely a trend, definitely a huge trend. And in libraries, it's the loaning the internet trend. That's a deal where a patron can come in and they can actually check out one of these little tiny things, like the smaller than a pack of cigarettes, and totally easy to use. 2 clicks and you're done to get the thing up and running. And it provides internet, mobile broadband internet, anywhere where you can get a signal of the provider. At TechSoup, we have something called Mobile Beacon Hotspots, and they have Sprint service, which, Sprint doesn't cover the entire country, but most of it. And, I've gotten to try those things out, and they're incredibly great. You can actually stream Netflix on it beautifully. No problem. They are just something. And then the uses, we basically, within the last couple of years, we've basically distributed 25,000 of these things, and there's mostly libraries, but a large number of nonprofits who do education stuff use them. You can use them actually for pop-up events. So if your nonprofit is, doing an event in the park, fundraising or a consciousness-raising event in the park, just take along, and you've got internet there, and people can do sign-ups online and all kinds of stuff. Incredibly useful little devices. So that's a trend. That's a bona fide trend, I would say, that I missed.
All right. So we are moving into the Q&A. So it looks like some of you guys are already asking questions. If you have questions, we have a few minutes for Jim to answer them. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with some of the ones that I've seen come in. So somebody's asking about the easiest software for mobile device development. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jim?
So developing a mobile app? Is that the question?
I think so, yeah. I think that's what they're asking, yeah.
Wow. Is there, I don't know. So, one thing I want to suggest is if there's somebody out there who knows stuff that I don't know, let me ask you to pipe up. Tell us. So I don't actually know what a good, I don't see that there's a huge amount of call for it. We thought there would be actually a couple of years ago, that there would be, but the big charities and almost no libraries actually do mobile app. A mobile app you can do on libraries is a virtual tour, and there are services that will set up a virtual tour for a library. And for a charity, it's usually like a fundraising app. And we've seen those restricted to the big dog, big, huge, Red Cross, Salvation Army, the big, enormous charities have those. And then there's apps that actually are mobile apps that are involved as kind of a mobile service where people text a number and donate. We're not seeing a whole bunch of uptake on that either, because people really have to know about your organization a lot. You have to advertise heavily behind an app like that. Just text 1234 star to donate $10. People, there's an advertising campaign that needs to accompany that thing, and most charities don't have the money to do that for sure. So we're just not seeing those kind of apps take off either. So correct me if I'm wrong, though, please.
All right, so we have another question here. Let's see, in terms of ransomware, let's see, there's a question about libraries and ransomware. How common is ransomware among small nonprofits?
I was shocked at that. The only stat we have on that is actually from a survey that something called TAG did. That's Technology Affinity Group, and that's a membership organization of foundation techies. So people who run the IT departments or work in the IT departments at, like the Ford Foundation or the Gates Foundation, but there are like 90,000 foundations in the country. So there's a lot of data there. 20% of them in the latest survey that TAG did said that they had a ransomware attack. 90% of those members, or rather 20% of those members, that's a huge number, said they're getting hit. And they're small offices. These are offices with, most of them, not Gates or Ford, but most foundations have under 10 employees. So they're just like nonprofits and a lot like libraries. So expect it. Expect ransomware to be a thing in this coming year. Yeah, it's coming.
Okay, and I think we have time for one last question. So we got a question around translation services, and then do you have any thoughts on translation services other than Google Translate?
I don't. But Google Translate is so incredible now. I mean, they have these. I actually moved recently, and the moving crew was non-English speaking, only spoke Spanish, and we spoke through our cell phones on Google Translate seamlessly. Complex things, please go into the bedroom and take apart the bed and then put it in to the front of the truck. It's like a complex thing. So Google Translate is free and so good. A library patron can come in speaking Arabic. You can set the thing up for Arabic and have a conversation with them. Incredible stuff. And there are these earbuds now that do that. Brand new kind of earbuds that came out last year. They're actually really good as well. If anybody has any other recommendations for translation software, I'd love to hear it, though, as good or better. There probably is, but I haven't heard of it.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So I think we are at time. So I'm going to go ahead and close out the webinar today. So if you guys don't mind, we have a post-event survey. So if you have feedback for us, any feedback you have is really helpful for us in terms of determining future content. And then also, if you don't mind just chatting one thing that you learned in today's webinar, it's always fun for us to read before we close out today. And then also, we are on social media, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So feel free to give us a follow on any of those platforms, and we try to post helpful tips and tricks there. We also have a blog, which is blog.techsoup.org, where we post articles and, again, helpful tips and tricks for your nonprofit or library. And we have a few webinars that are coming up in February. So next week we have Get to Know Grant Station, followed by Grant Trends and Common Mistakes. And then mid-month we have a webinar around Office 365 security features, and then cybersecurity and low-risk organizations at the end of the month. Again, these are all on our website. We also have courses and services, so if you're unfamiliar with either of those, you can find more information when we send you the follow-up email. And then also we offer a 10% off discount for webinar attendees for the first TechSoup course of your choice. And again, I'll send all of this information out when we send the follow-up email. So I just want to thank Jim today for your presentation, and thank you to the attendees for staying on this long. And then also thank you to our sponsor ReadyTalk, and we hope to see you at our next webinar.